Hi everybody, it's Latte and Tea. Let's talk about urban legends and copycat killers, which is a criminal act that's modeled after or inspired by a previous crime. It notably occurs after exposure to media content depicting said crimes and or twisted live criminal role models. Matthew Anderson, he appears to have been copying an urban legend when he disturbingly took the life of Sade Robinson April 1st, 2024. I did a story about this case. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. Anderson allegedly lured Sade to his home, assaulted, shot her, burned and hit her car, mutilated her body, then spreading her body parts across Milwaukee, Wisconsin beaches to Lake Michigan. It's like he wanted to act out a copycat crime. Next, Peter Sutcliffe, inspired by Jack the Ripper, a truck driver who unalived at least 13 women and attempting to unalive 7 others between 1975 and 1980.
This was in Halifax, where 19-year-old bank clerk Josephine Whitaker was killed. Murder scenes were scattered across Yorkshire and Manchester.
For several years, women, especially here in West Yorkshire, were scared. Going out alone at night was a real risk. Peter Sutcliffe changed the way people lived.
My attack did shape my life and my outlook, within a matter of 5 minutes. One side of that time scale, I was a happy-go-lucky, young, innocent art student, and after that I became sarcastic and cynical, and I lost trust.
Even though he fitted descriptions, it led to the conclusion that Peter Sutcliffe wasn't their man, as a retired detective recalls.
And one of the top table officers said, is he a Geordie? No. What's his name? He said, Peter Sutcliffe. Now listen, boys. Peter Sutcliffe is not the Yorkshire Ripper.
So Sutcliffe carried on killing. Colleagues at the haulage firm where he worked knew he was a suspect and used to joke about it. When he was eventually arrested for having stolen number plates, he confessed. At Dewsbury Police Station, the public turned out to express their disgust. Sutcliffe was jailed for the rest of his life. He died after contracting COVID-19 and refusing treatment. Few, if any, will mourn the passing of a man who destroyed so many lives.
Matthew Milat, inspired by Ivan Milat, is one of the most notorious killers in Australian history, having slain 7 tourists in the Belanglo State Forest. Years later, Ivan's great-nephew, Matthew Milat, unalived his friend David Octolani, also inside Belanglo State Forest. David was lured there on his 17th birthday. 19-year-olds Cohen Klein and Matthew Milat pleaded guilty to his slaying. Milat hit the victim with the axe while Klein made a mobile phone recording. Milat was jailed for 43 years while Klein was jailed for up to 32 years, with a minimum sentence of 22 years. The teenagers sat side by side in the dock, avoiding the gaze of the victim's family and the packed courtroom. David Octolani's mother Donna Locke told reporters she accepted Milat's sentence. "I'm glad he got as long as he did. It will never, ever be truly enough because David is gone and Matthew can be released in time and go live some of his life," she said. "But I'm just glad that he didn't get any less." Detective Inspector Mark Newham worked on the case and says the sentence reflects just how horrific the crime was. "All homicides are obviously terrible in their own way," he said. "But this is certainly one of the worst we've come across, and in particular, having to listen to that recording and knowing what David Octolani would have suffered in those final minutes." It was said, Matthew later gloated about the slaying. "That's what the Milats do." Seriously? Anyway, let's look at these clips. In 2011, the charges against Chase Day were dropped. He was called to give evidence in court. After speaking with the directors of prosecution, it was clear he was not held accountable for any wrongdoing and appeared in court as a witness. Chase told detectives about Klein's video phone recording of the slaying and their plans for David when they picked him up on his birthday. Chase provided vital recollections of what happened that tragic night. With overwhelming evidence against Cohen Klein and Matthew Milat, they both pled guilty to the slaying. Okay, last we have Andrew Twitchell, inspired by Dexter. Police believe that Canadian independent filmmaker Mark Andrew Twitchell was on his way to becoming a full-fledged serial killer. Fortunately, he was caught before he was able to commit more slayings. Instead, he was discovered after his first killing in 2011 and sentenced to life in prison. He created his own plot of Dexter in his short film. Twitchell placed an ad on an online dating service posing as a woman to lure John Brian Altinger to a rented garage under the pretense of meeting a date there. He was never seen again. He wouldn't have been suspected if Altinger had not emailed his friends directions to the garage before going. Police searched the leasing history of the garage and found that Mark Twitchell had rented it. Police began to suspect that Twitchell was on the path to serial killer status after another man came forward. This near victim escaped from the same garage, following being beaten by a man in a mask. His escape took place a week before Altinger's disappearance. Mark is suspected to have many more victims, but he was only convicted of one slaying, of the first degree, in 2011. There he would detain, tie up his victims, and admitted to wearing his broken and painted hockey mask. Here's Gillis Tatro, the first targeted victim.
Gillis Tetro was online on the plentyoffish.com website, which is a dating site.
Tetro, who was 33 at the time, was excited to meet the woman who called herself Sheena.
I was actually late, so I was driving quite fast to get there.
She said, I'll just leave the garage door open for you, and then you just go through the garage. I don't think he ever imagined in a million years what would happen to him in that garage.
It was dark. Then I kind of looked around for the door she told me to go through, and that's when somebody came out and attacked me from behind. Finally looked back, and that's when I see this man with this painted up hockey mask. I was just chill down my back. Wow, this is no date. He's about like 6 foot and has this black and gold hockey mask all painted up on his face.
The hockey mask wearing man had ordered him to the ground at gunpoint.
And he tore a piece of tape and he covered my eyes with it. I start hearing different things, like a jingling noise and stuff like that. In my head, it's just racing, like it's like thinking, what's going on? What is he gonna do? Is he taking another?
Gillis Tatro recalls Twitchell pulling out his weapon, but he was able to restrain him and took the weapon. He explained how great it felt to do that. Gillis said he got up, then ripped the tape off his eyes. Twitchell started yelling for him to get back down, but Gillis slid under the garage door, knowing that if Twitchell grabbed him, he could slip right out of his jacket. But Gillis fell from being tasered. Thinking if he didn't try again, it was over for him. So he gave it another go and was able to stumble his way into his car, then speeds off. A month later, while watching the news, he heard of Johnny Altinger's case. After seeing the story, Gillis knew he had to report what happened. No more feeling shamed for getting duped, he said.
Exactly 1 month after he was attacked, Gilles Tetro walked into the Edmonton Police Department and told police his incredible story.
I was all off balance. I couldn't run. I fell down from the gravel driveway and basically crawling. So he dragged me back to the garage.
Gilles' story matched nearly word for word what was in SK Confessions. I grabbed him by the leg, as if to drag him back into the garage, caveman style.
So I know that this diary we have is true.
After this all happened, I realized how lucky I was.
7 days after Gilles was attacked, police say Twitchell wasn't going to make the same mistake twice. How did he kill John?
We know that he lured him to the garage in the same way he lured Gilles Tetro. And then in this case, because he learned from Gilles that the taser didn't work, he hit him over the head with a lead pipe.
Following the narrative, police believe Altinger was then stabbed and dismembered on a makeshift autopsy table.
What was the most damning piece of evidence that you discovered?
We had, luminol tests done on the floor. Large amounts of blood had been spilled on the floor of the garage. Probably one of the biggest pieces, a piece of tooth that was found inside there. That piece of tooth matched up to our victim.
According to SK Confessions, the killer then broke into Altinger's apartment and sent out those emails about taking an exotic vacation. The killer then attempted to burn the remains in a barrel, but failed. He next tried to dump them into the river, but was afraid of being seen.
Ultimately, Mark Twitchell drove around with it, according to the SK Confessions document. He even talked about driving around with them and pulling up beside people at red lights and looking at them and thinking that they don't know I have a dead body.
Done. Movie's over. You write it all down.
Detective Clark was relentless, taking Twitchell on a tour of his old neighborhood.
And we first drove to his parents' house where he had been staying. We actually demanded that he tell us. He wouldn't.
Look familiar, Mark? Are we parked right on top of the sewer where you dumped the body?
Next stop, the scene of the crime.
So here we are, back at the killing garage. The Dexter garage. Bring back any memories? You want to tell us where the body is now? Get this over with?
But Twitchell remained silent. So police kept searching on their own, looking in sewer after sewer.
So all these manhole covers were pulled off in this alley. So anytime I'd see one, I always had my flashlight with me and would get out and actually take a look.
Weeks, then months passed, and still no luck. Then a year and a half after Johnny Altinger disappeared, Twitchell, while awaiting trial, broke his silence and gave the police a map.
Just up here on the left, it's about a block south of his parents' house.
Investigators followed it to an alleyway just a half block away from where they had stopped the search.
And he had marked an X. X marks the spot. Took us right to this sewer cover here. We could see what looked like pieces of human torso down there.
According to study, due to the increase of replicated crimes, criminologists soon began to believe that media coverage play a role in inspiring other criminals to commit crimes in a similar fashion, and even for non-criminals to begin committing crimes when they otherwise might not have done so. Sources also say people who mimic crimes, seen in the media, especially in news and violent movies, are more likely to have prior criminal records, severe mental health problems, or histories of violence. We all pretty much know urban legends, superstitions, creepypasta, and other fear-generating narrative elements. Urban legends are often rooted in local history and popular culture, but some crazed lunatics will go far to make it reality. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay safe. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe for more true crime stories, urban legends, mysteries, and the paranormal.